Hello, Karen. We are so excited to be having this conversation with you today. You are definitely our go-to LinkedIn expert. We love talking all things social media and especially LinkedIn with you. And Ness and I are super excited about this conversation today. Particularly, I want to kick off by asking you, how do we get on social media, be present, be visible without getting addicted to it? How do we do that?
You know what what I really enjoy about your podcast is that you're always talking about, what's the strategy, what's the, I know, Ness, you love your data, what are the facts, what are the numbers, and Nikki, you often talk about the strategy. And I just think it's so important that we have our outcome in mind. And so, what is it you actually want to achieve? And if you have to, put it on a sticky note, stick it on your computer. Just remember that likes are great and collecting lots of followers are great, but that doesn't actually pay your bills. It's really about having the right people in your world and the right network and the right relationship. So thinking, who do I want more visibility with, and not getting sidetracked by, oh my gosh, I've got all these followers on Instagram. Yeah, but are you actually making any money? Are people reaching out to you? So really looking at the right data, not the data that keeps getting pushed at you.
Wow, that's really powerful, because I think when we start, well, I speak on our behalf, when we started the business, it was, what metrics do we need to look at in order to, I guess, assess how well we're doing on social media, knowing it was really, really important. But that's a really good point. Often we think about, get caught into how many likes, I think, viral posts, all that kind of thing, and getting excited. I remember seeing somebody on LinkedIn write about, she did something around chocolate in the fridge, chocolate not in the fridge. And it went viral and got so many views on it and likes and comments. And she goes, but it had nothing to do with my message. Nothing at all. And It didn't win her any business. So that's a really good reminder. No matter where we are in business, it can feel like another thing we've got to do, another thing that gets measured, but understanding how that gets measured. So I guess my question that would come out of that, Karen, is what happens if you're not getting any customers from your posts and all your time on social media? What do you do with that?
Then you have to look at, so I think a lot of people think of social media as a place where they can put out content and a publishing. They think of them as publishing platforms. Mm-hmm. And so, we'll put out content and we don't have to pay for it. So I think a lot of us, especially those of us who are a bit more mature in business, I think we often have a muscle memory of thinking about content as an advert. Mm-hmm. And I think instead we really need to think of content as something that's great to do, but the most important thing is who you know and who they know. And I think that's even more crucial for female founders, which I know are a lot of your listeners, because women, we are community minded and we back each other. I never go to a hairdresser and I've recently had to change hairdressers because my hairdresser moved away. And I was like checking with all my girlfriends, like, who do you go to? Who do you go to? I don't want to go to a hairdresser that nobody's referred me to. We do business with people who we have a relationship with. So I think we need to look at our social media channels as not just places where we can put out content and think, actually, that's very much the secondary thing. How are these tools where we can build relationships one-to-many in a way that's really time efficient? You don't want to be on any social media platform all the time, constantly going, look at what I had for breakfast, look at my chocolate, look at this, and constantly make friends and friends and friends, and you've just, building your network huge. It's about being really smart with your time. What's your goal? Who do you want to attract? And having a really clear client avatar in mind, and also having referrals in place. And by referrals, I'm not talking about referral programs, because that's something I think UNES could I don't think you've done an episode on that yet, have you? But you could do, just saying, just throwing it out there, you know, but thinking who could be your referral partners, you know, who, if they're not going to be your client, would they know people who are your client? And making sure that you're using social media really consciously, really with intentionality around building relationships with the right people. And when you do that, you will get more likes on your content. So you will get more comments, but you have to build relationships. So it's not about, you know, getting out there. And if you're on LinkedIn specifically, getting out there and following lots of people, but instead get out there and connect with them. And when you connect with them, make sure that you're liking their posts. Make sure that you're commenting on their posts. Make sure that once they've accepted your invitation to connect, you're getting out your mobile phone, you're clicking on the message tab, bottom right-hand side, you're clicking on the microphone, and you're leaving a 1-minute voice note. And because relationships are built one sentence at a time. And coming back to that hairdresser thing, you know, you want to be the one that everybody's going, you know, you need to, you know, go to that person for your accounting. You need to go to that person for your, you know, when it comes to service-based businesses, it's very much about relationships and who do we trust.
Yeah, there is so much in what you've just said. And just to go into a little bit of one of the key points, what I loved is the distinction of we often fall into the trap of thinking about content as advertising, and we need to think of it as content is relationship building and this one-to-many. And it's almost what I love about Ness and I have been in your masterclasses and seen the amazing work that you do. And the thing that we always take away is that message about how to build relationships. And it's almost, we talked about this in another episode, it feels like this word is bandied around a lot, but it's almost that authenticity of bringing you. And sometimes when I think, because based on your advice, I do those voice notes, and some of you who are listening may have received a voice note from me. You have Karen to thank for that. It's this whole piece around humanizing it.
Yes.
It's humanizing it.
Yeah, which leads me to something else as well. You know, a lot of people, particularly when you've got a big team and, you know, if you've got children, life's busy, you know, you've got a lot on the table. You know, every business owner knows that success is not just what you say yes to, it's what you say no to. And I often see a lot of female founders who want to hide behind the brand. Interestingly, I don't always see guys do that. They're like, I need to be the figurehead of my company. You know, but women are often like, can't I just push out the company page, and can't I just push out posts from the company page and then I'll repost those and, you know, with some of my thoughts. And you can do that, but you're never going to foster that deep connection if you're always hiding behind a company name. You know, as the figurehead of the business, you do need to be that figurehead. People will use your business not because it's got a great name, not because of the logo or the colors of your brand, but because of what your name is and who you are. So you really need to put yourself out there as well, while still, and I'm just reiterating it again, still being careful around those boundaries and thinking with intentionality around who you want to build those relationships with.
I love that. And I think when we sort of started the conversation around this, how do you stop the endless scroll and the distraction that you gain from all of a sudden you've just spent an hour on social media, be it LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook? I think you might have touched partly on the answer there, Karen, when you were saying you need to have your strategy, you need to understand why you're on it. So have you got any more specifics around, you know, how do you break that cycle? How do you stop that getting sucked in? Because I feel like, especially early in the business, but it creeps back every now and then, that just feeds comparisonitis and it feeds procrastination. And all of those combined can leave you just walking away, not doing anything, but feeling worse about yourself. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So I think it's really important to have a routine. You know, I'm all for this idea of being social media fit.
Oh, I love that.
Social media fish.
Writing that down.
Thank you, because it's a new idea that I've just been playing with in my head, and I don't think I've ever said it aloud before.
Well, you heard it here first.
Sorry, forgive my cough. So, sorry, listeners. So I think it's, you know, when we want to get fit, when we want to get our summer bodies on, you know, it takes consistent time. You're not going to go to the gym once and suddenly you've got, you know, flat abs and, you know, suddenly, you know, looking amazing. It takes consistently showing up. So when we have a habit of using LinkedIn, you know, I think we need to break it down on what can we do daily, weekly, and monthly. And so best practice is just 3 to 10 minutes a day, and you don't want to do it any more than that. 3 to 10 minutes a day, just scrolling through your newsfeed and liking and commenting on as many posts as you can in the newsfeed. That might be something that you don't want to do. It might be something that you want to outsource. But it's really important that those comments do capture your tone and your opinion. So I wouldn't outsource it, but something like that would be really great. And then once a week, every week, looking at who you've interacted with that week, who are the new clients that your team has onboarded, who are you meeting with next week, what are the events that you've got coming up, and sending personalized invitations to connect. That can be outsourced. Somebody in your team, if you give them a list and you just write out some notes of different people, you know, like I met that person at the event, just write out a few notes. Somebody can write templates for you and send those personalized invites to connect. Or you could do it yourself, just with creating your own template and just changing it so that it does sound and feel authentic. And then once a month, sending voice notes to everybody who's accepted your invitation to connect. And I'm saying once a month because, you know, you don't want to jump on people straight away. You know, you don't want to be like they've just accepted your invitation to connect. So I'm all for batching activity. And I had a coughing fit earlier and now my nose is running. So, but thankfully, listeners, you're not going to see this. Aren't you lucky? Apologies, those who might be in on YouTube. And then just once a month as well, taking yourself to your favorite, you know, cafe and sitting down and writing maybe 6 pieces of content. So you've got 1 a week every week and then 2 in the kitty. If you can produce content twice a week, fantastic. I suppose that depends on the size of your team and the ideas of your team. And when it comes to content creation, again, just coming back to, you know, the percentage on female founders is just not high. You know, we don't have a lot of women running businesses. And I think part of that is the time. So if you're thinking, I don't have time to create content and I don't have time to even think about creating content, you could ask people in your team, what are the questions you're always getting asked? You know, if you can just start a meeting once a week with what are the questions you were getting last week, or every time you get a question from a customer, like it's the second time you've received that question, can you just BCC me in? Because that question is a piece of content and you can create content that answers people's questions. And that content will always go well and probably even be Google ranked if it's an article. If you answer a frequently asked question in an article, it'll be Google ranked. Because people will be sticking that into Google going, how do you do this? You know, and then you've also got an evergreen piece of content that when you've got a customer who says, you know, I'm stuck with my tax, how do I do that? Oh, well, here's a video we created. Here's an article we've written. So you're affirming your knowledge and it's evergreen. You can use it as a library. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, I think it's about little and often.
I love that. And there's some really good simple structure there. I have a couple of questions that come up around that, and it's just I love the simplicity again in how you explain to do something, because I think we can fall into the trap of overthinking, and it's overcomplicated and it's so huge. And I know for some people that I talk to, they have the intention that they want to say be more active on LinkedIn. They can see the benefit, maybe their audience is hanging out there, etc. But sometimes the barrier I see is, oh, my LinkedIn profile isn't good enough. What is good enough? What is enough that it's professional enough that people won't go, whoa, okay, like for example, please have a photo. that would be an obvious starting point. But what's this barrier to go, actually, that is good enough. Just post those weekly pieces of content. I love the tip with the questions. What is good enough when it comes to the profile?
I'm a LinkedIn profile writer, so I think it's really crucial. I think if you're going to invest in anything, it's important to get your profile right and then the right network. And I would put those two on parallel. There's no point in having a really great network and your profile looks rubbish.
Yeah.
And I'm putting both of those ahead of content creation. I know I'm answering your question indirectly, because when you're creating content, your content tells, your profile sells. Great content should be pulling attention to your profile. So it's about, you can use the search filters on LinkedIn to proactively search for clients and put yourself in Fate's path. And I think people don't do that enough. You can play with the search filters and then, just put a word into the search bar, then click on all, and then search by people and then all filters, and you can find great people. But when you're producing content, it's pulling attention to your profile. So a really great profile needs to have a headline, so a bit that sits underneath your name that doesn't just say founder at such and such. If your company name is, I'm just going to pick a word, I don't know why it's in my head, Melville, and it says founder at Melville. Like, well, what's Melville? Are you an accounting firm? Are you a law firm? Are you risk advisors? Are you financial planners? Like, I don't know. So you need to kind of say what's on the tin. You need to let people know. You've got 220 characters there, so it's quite a lot of space to use different keywords to describe what it is you do. And make sure you front load it. So remember that people can only see about the first 60 characters before they click on your profile in full. Make sure you got a profile photo. That is important. And check your settings. Make sure it's visible. Check your contact info section, and think about also having your email address in your about section and having it in your experience section, and creating a document where you can have a little blurb copied from your website, and you can put it in this document and you can distribute it to all the employees, and all the employees you can't mandate it, they own their profile, but you could say to all of your employees, look, I've created a background banner for you all. It's got the company logo on. Here's some standard wording for your experience section, which speaks to our values as an organization and what we do for our clients. And it's got a generic email, info at, or something like that. And the reason why I'm mentioning email addresses is because a lot of people don't realize that with LinkedIn, since GDPR came in, the Privacy Act in the UK, people can't access your email address. So people might think, oh my gosh, I'm looking at this profile and it's great, and this business is everything I need. Oh, but I can't contact them unless I connect with them. And I don't know, when, my stomach's grumbling and I'm tired, and then boom, they move to something else. So you just want to flatten the path and make it really easy to be contacted. So I think there's a lot of other things you can do on LinkedIn, but I think if you've got the headline right, profile photo, make sure your email's accessible. Those are just the absolute basics.
And we'll make sure, of course, that your contact details are in the show notes, and we will ask you in a little while how people can contact you, although I'm hazarding a guess that LinkedIn might be one of those channels. So, if you do want that external support, Karen is definitely the go-to. When you said, who do you think of? I always think of Karen. So, and then I've just got one more question. I know, Ness, you'll want to jump in as well. This is around what we've talked about, I know in the past, Karen, is, and you alluded to a little bit with FAQs, and there's often questions that all of us as business owners or our teams are being asked about our services or the products that we provide. And I know you have a really strong stance on making sure that you've got so many free resources that are available for people to help them. But there's also a bit of a key message around that to make sure we're thriving without the burnout. So could you tell us a little bit about what your boundaries and standards are in terms of when people are maybe inquiring to work with you? And again, this is from a perspective for those of you that are listening. When we look at the sales framework and the qualifying process, this is another example of how you can adapt something similar in your business, regardless of what service offering you have out there.
Yeah. So rather than talk about what I do for myself, I'll talk about a friend of mine who will be listening to this podcast. And she was giving away an hour of free time as a way of onboarding clients. I have another person I know who gives away 30 minutes of free time. The amount of people who are booking in for that hour of free time or that half an hour free time is declining for them. Like, they're getting less and less people buy in. And I'm like, seriously, why are you giving away any time for free? Like, you're like, I'll give away an hour, but then if you sign up for me, it's going to cost like, $1,500. Like, why don't you just make your fees cheaper or keep them the same and just not give away any free time? And they're like, but how will people know what it's like to work with me? And so I'm all for having some free content. You might want to gate it, keep some of it as a lead magnet where you can collect email addresses and things, but have some free resources that answer those frequently asked questions at a very high level. And that way, when people say, I'm really interested in working with you, what are the fees like or whatever, you can be like, well, before we talk, have a read through this, watch this webinar, whatever. But if you can give somebody an article that you've written that helps them to do some of it themselves and showcases your expertise, if they don't want to read that article or watch that video, they're not your right person, are they? Because there's no way they're going to pay, $1,000 or whatever for your services if they can't even take a few minutes to watch a video or read a book, I'll read an article. So give away free content, some free content that showcases your expertise, answers their questions, helps them on the journey. And it's just this idea that you don't want to constantly be, please have 20 minutes with me or 30 minutes or an hour. And I think the reason why my friends' intake of people booking in for this hour is because when people are giving away free time, the expectation from the customer is, I'm going to be sold to, so why would I want to book in for a 30-minute chat? And it's just going to be full of hardcore sales. Like, oh, why would I want to do that? But if you're like, no, I'm sorry, as I do, I'm sorry, I don't do free chats. So before we chat, these are some free resources. This is what you can do. And I'm not even saying before, I'm saying here's some free resources. And they're like, no, but I'm really interested in working with you. Okay, well, these are my fees. This is my service outline. And only until you've said, this is okay, you're 100% all right for that, then we can have a fit call. And that fit call is not a, let me tell you about your services so you can decide if I'm right for you. It is part that, but it's also, are you right for me?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Ourselves.
What I really love about the theme that's coming through all of the answers to our questions today, Karen, is this thought of giving, of generosity, because what you're talking about in that part is actually not just looking after our own time, but looking after our clients and potential clients' time. It's about giving. It's about sharing resources, whether they choose to work with you or not. It's really saying, I've got so much knowledge and I'm happy for you to have it. And if you like what I've got to say and you're a good fit, then perhaps we could do business together, as opposed to sell. So, yeah.
the budget, not everybody has the budget. And I think, what I love about businesses like yours, which are very much, sorry, I cut you short there.
No, you're good.
But, what I love about businesses like yours that are very much around helping women, and is that, women do like to help other women, we really do. And our non-binary communities, it's really important that we all lift each other up. And not everybody can afford your fees. But that doesn't mean that you should give them half an hour of your time.
Yeah.
Like, if you can create resources that helps them get to a point where they can afford your fees, that's a human good.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. I feel like we could talk about this for such a lot longer, but in wrapping up, I want us to just come back and focus on, you've shared so much gold in relation to, that setting your goal in the, what you're using social media for, coming up with a plan or a strategy, making it batching, all of those cool tips that I'm actually, Nick, we're going to have to go back and listen and take notes and have discussions about what we might do differently. But I'm curious, we love to finish on one action for our listeners to take in the next 24 hours that will start break the cycle that they might have around being owned by social media rather than owning it themselves. So there was so much you put in there, but what do you reckon would be one achievable, actionable thing somebody could do in the next 24 hours to help break that cycle?
Set yourself a metric around how many, like a goal around how many ideal, depending on what platform you're on, friends or connections you want to have. Not followers, unless you're on Instagram, because on LinkedIn and Facebook, it's not about followers. It's actually about being connected to these people so you can have two-way messages. So set yourself a goal around growing that and set time aside once a week, every week, to look at who you know, look at the people you don't know, and grow towards that number.
Love it.
It's about relationships. It's not about
Love that. Did you have any last comments to make, Nick?
No, I just feel like we could keep the conversation going forever because there's so much knowledge that you have to give. And the final question to wrap up is really, where can people find you? How can they find out about the work that you're doing, or even how they can work with you?
All free resources.
All free resources.
Could I forget that?
I've got so many free resources. As a LinkedIn profile writer, I've got so many, who's been writing profiles for 14 years now. I've got so many free resources on how to write your profile. So you'll find me on LinkedIn. You'll also find my website, it's Karen Tisdell, which is TISDELL for those who are listening and can't see my name there. And you'll find me on LinkedIn too. So, just send me an invite to connect. You will receive a voice note, and that voice note will say, would you like some free resources? So say yes. Or reach out and say you like.
Also, additional challenge out there. Oh, can you send Karen a voice note before she sends you one?
You've got to be connected first though, but yes, absolutely. Can you? Once we're connected, can you do it before I do?
Actually, what I love about that is some people get really nervous. I know I did when I first started doing them. So it's good to send it to somebody that you know is going to support you, cheer you on, and be your cheerleader in that. Look, thank you so much.
Voice note. I'm open to voice notes.
Oh, and Nikki and I, of course, of course. Thank you so much for joining us. We will make sure that all of your contact details are in the show notes. And what a great chat. Thanks for coming along, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you. I love what you're all doing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Listeners.